Everyone laughed at her, until they knew the truth. In the heart of the ancient lands, nestled between emerald hills and the whispering river, lay the village of Oakhaven. It was a place where the sun kissed the earth with golden warmth, where the aroma of wood smoke mingled with the sweet scent of mangoes, and the rhythmic beat of drums echoed tales of old. Here, life moved with the grace of the river itself, steady and profound. And in Oakhaven there lived a girl named Amara, whose beauty was as striking as the first blush of dawn. Her skin, the color of rich earth, glowed under the sun, and her eyes, deep pools of liquid obsidian, held a fierce, untamed fire. Her laughter, when she chose to share it, was like the chime of bells, clear and bright. But Amara carried herself with a pride that often overshadowed her grace, a quiet arrogance born perhaps of the admiration that followed her every step. Many young men in Oakhaven vied for her attention, but none pursued her with the unwavering devotion of Kwame. Kwame was a man of the earth, sturdy and honest, with a smile that could disarm the most troubled heart. His hands, though calloused from tilling the fields and mending fences, were gentle. He spoke with a quiet wisdom and looked at Amara as if she held the secrets of the stars. He brought her wild flowers picked at dawn, helped her family mend their roof, and offered her stories whispered by the winds through the baobab trees. He saw beyond her beauty, into the vibrant, sometimes stubborn spirit within. But Kwame, for all his goodness, was a simple farmer. His hut was modest, his clothes were plain, and his possessions few. His wealth was in his character, his kindness, and the honest sweat of his brow. Amara, however, yearned for more. She saw the humble life Kwame offered, and her heart, swelling with youthful ambition and a desire for status, rejected it. "Kwame," she would say, her voice tinged with a delicate impatience, "you're a good man, truly. But my spirit demands more than a life spent tilling the same soil, day after day. I was not made for such smallness." She dreamed of shimmering silks, of jewels that sparkled like dew on morning leaves, of a life where her beauty would be admired in grand halls, not just among the dusty paths of Oakhaven. Each time Kwame approached her, his eyes filled with hope, she would turn away, her pride a shield. His earnestness often met with a dismissive wave of her hand, a slight curl of her perfect lip. The villagers, witnessing his devotion and her coldness, would sigh. "Amara has a heart of stone," some whispered. "She values glitter over gold." Others lamented. Kwame, though hurt, never spoke a harsh word, simply watching her from afar, his gentle eyes shadowed with a persistent sorrow. Then, like a storm gathering on the horizon, a stranger arrived. His name was Dinma. He rode into Oakhaven not on foot, like a humble traveler, but on a magnificent stallion draped in embroidered silks, its hoofs kicking up dust like golden smoke. His clothes were of the finest fabric, woven with intricate patterns that shimmered in the sunlight. Gold glinted on his fingers, around his neck, even woven into the braids of his hair. His retinue followed, an impressive display of armed guards and servants laden with exotic goods. Dinma was a man of power, a merchant prince from a distant land, or so he claimed. He spoke with an intoxicating charm, his voice smooth as polished stone. His eyes, though piercing, held a seductive warmth when they rested on Amara. He showered her with gifts, rare spices, iridescent fabrics, a necklace of polished amber that seemed to capture the very essence of the sunset. He spoke not of tilling soil but of distant cities, of grand adventures, of a life far removed from the simple rhythms of Oakhaven. Amara was captivated. Here was the life she had always envisioned, arriving on the back of a majestic horse, carried by a man who seemed to command the very air around him. Dinma saw her beauty and her ambition, and he played upon it like a master musician. He promised her a life of unimaginable luxury, a world where her every whim would be indulged, where she would be revered as a queen. He was everything Kwame was not, rich, powerful, sophisticated, and daring. He swept her off her feet with promises that glittered like the jewels he bestowed upon her. The contrast between him and the humble Kwame was stark, and to Amara the choice seemed clear. She announced her intention to marry Dinma, to leave Oakhaven and embrace the grand destiny she believed awaited her. The villagers watched, some with envy, others with a deep unease. Kwame stood in the shadows, his face a mask of profound sorrow, his heart shattering into 1,000 pieces with each beat of the celebration drums. Amara, oblivious to his silent suffering, walked away from him and from her village, her head held high, believing she was stepping into a fairy tale. The first few months of her new life with Dinma were, indeed, everything Amara had dreamed of. She lived in a sprawling compound, far from Oakhaven, a place adorned with rich tapestries and carvings, where servants attended to her every need. Her days were filled with exquisite meals, leisurely baths infused with fragrant oils, and the adornment of beautiful clothes and jewels. Dinma, when he was present, was attentive and doting, lavishing her with compliments and gifts. He introduced her to a world she had only imagined, a world of lavish feasts and whispered power. She sent messages back to Oakhaven, subtly boasting of her good fortune, confirming to herself and to anyone who would listen that she had made the right choice, that her pride had led her to true happiness. She was admired, adored, and seemingly utterly content. But beneath the glittering surface, a subtle chill began to creep in. Dinma's presence, while initially charming, started to feel heavy, possessive. He rarely allowed her to leave the compound, citing concerns for her safety, but his words began to sound more like commands than reassurances. His absences grew longer, sometimes weeks at a time, and when he returned, his eyes held a cold, calculating glint she hadn't noticed before. He began to question her, subtly at first, about her interactions with the servants, about where her thoughts truly lay. The endless pampering started to feel less like adoration and more like a gilded cage. The compound, once a symbol of her freedom from Oakhaven's smallness, now felt like a fortress, its high walls keeping her in, not protecting her from the outside. The smiles of the servants grew wary, their eyes darting away when she tried to engage them in conversation. She overheard hushed whispers of transactions and roads, words that made no sense but carried an undercurrent of something sinister. One day, a new girl appeared among the servants, her eyes wide with terror, her wrists bearing faint, telltale marks. Amara's heart ached, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach, but when she questioned Dinma, he dismissed it with a wave of his hand, a smooth, practiced lie about unfortunate circumstances and charitable acts. Yet the unease persisted, growing like an insidious vine, choking out the joy of her luxury. Then came the day the mask finally slipped. Dinma returned from one of his long journeys, his face grim, his usual charm replaced by a brutal indifference. Nor did he offer her gifts. Instead, he summoned her to his chambers, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. He spoke of losses, of failed ventures, of debts that needed to be paid, and then the words that would forever shatter her world: "Your pretty face, Amara, has served its purpose. Your beauty lured me, but now it must serve a new master." He revealed himself not as a merchant prince, but as a ruthless warlord, a trafficker of human lives, his wealth built on the misery of others. He had taken her not out of love, but as a prize, a beautiful ornament to display, and now even that superficial purpose was exhausted. Her world collapsed. The lavish clothes were stripped away, replaced by coarse, drab fabrics. The jewels were confiscated, her soft bed exchanged for a straw mat on the cold, hard floor of a small windowless room. The servants, once deferential, now treated her with a mixture of pity and contempt, for they too were captives in their own way, bound by fear. Amara, the proud beauty of Oakhaven, was no longer a queen. She was a possession, a slave in her own home, trapped within the very walls that once promised her freedom. Her beauty, once her greatest asset, now felt like a curse, a brand of her past folly. What would you do if you were her, stripped of everything, trapped by the very choice you believed would elevate you? Her days became an endless cycle of toil and despair. She was forced to work, scrubbing floors, pounding grain, carrying heavy loads, her once delicate hands now bruised and calloused, mirroring the hands of the very man she had once scorned. Her skin, once glowing, grew dull and thin from inadequate food and relentless labor. Her spirit, once fiery, was slowly being extinguished, crushed under the weight of her suffering and the chilling realization of her colossal mistake. Dinma, when he saw her, would mock her, reminding her of her pride, of her disdain for the simple life. "Look at you, Amara," he would sneer, "the village girl who sought greatness. You found it, did you not? The greatness of servitude, the greatness of regret." Each word was a lash, tearing at the last vestiges of her dignity. She thought of Kwame, of his honest face, his gentle touch, the simple life she had scorned, and a torrent of bitter tears would well up, unchecked, unspoken. Years bled into each other, each day a gray repetition of the last. The world outside the compound became a distant dream, Oak Haven a faint, painful memory. She was starved, beaten, forgotten by everyone she had ever known. Her spirit, though bruised, still flickered occasionally, fueled by a deep, buried anger at herself, at Dinma, at the cruel twist of fate. She saw other women, other men brought into the compound, their eyes mirroring the terror that had once filled hers. She saw their despair and, in her own brokenness, felt a flicker of empathy, a connection to their shared suffering. The proud Amara, who once judged others by their possessions, was now just a shell, her identity stripped bare, leaving only the raw, aching core of a woman utterly alone. Her only solace was the quiet rebellion within her heart, the refusal to completely break, to surrender the last spark of her soul. She would remember the aroma of Oak Haven, the sound of the river, the simple joy of children playing, and for a fleeting moment she would feel a glimmer of the Amara she once was, before the pride, before the fall. But those moments were rare, quickly overshadowed by the harsh reality of her existence. She was just a body, a pair of hands, another forgotten face in Dinma's brutal empire, living under the constant threat of his cold, unfeeling cruelty. Her once vibrant eyes now held a distant, haunted look, reflecting the emptiness of her days, the crushing weight of her regret. The vibrant drumbeats of her youth had been replaced by the mournful silence of her captivity, broken only by the whip's crack or the groans of the weary. One sweltering afternoon, years after her capture, as Amara toiled in the compound's desolate courtyard, a tremor of excitement, unusual and palpable, rippled through the other enslaved people. Whispers, hushed and urgent, darted from mouth to mouth, quickly stifled whenever a guard drew near. Amara, too weary to care much for distant rumors, still picked up snippets. A new leader, a powerful one, benevolent, they say. Her heart, long dormant, stirred faintly. She had long given up hope for external rescue, finding what little strength she had left in the resilience of her own spirit. But then the whispers grew more specific, carrying a name that made the blood freeze in her veins, then rushed to her ears with a thunderous roar. The great Kwame. He has united the tribes. He has vanquished the slavers. He has brought peace. Kwame. The name echoed in the hollow chambers of her mind, a ghost from a life she no longer recognized. It couldn't be. It was impossible. Her Kwame, the simple farmer, the kind soul she had dismissed, was now a great leader. The thought was absurd, a cruel trick of her memory, a desperate fantasy. Yet the whispers persisted, growing louder, more confident, carrying details that were too specific to be mere dreams. This Kwame was famed for his wisdom, his justice, his unwavering commitment to his people. He was known for rescuing the enslaved, for rebuilding broken villages, for fostering a peace that had been absent for generations. He was the man who had overthrown warlords, broken their networks, and brought an end to the very savagery that had consumed her life. The pieces began to click into place, horrifying in their clarity. Dinma's compound, once impenetrable, now seemed gripped by a growing fear, a panicked energy. The guards were fewer, their faces drawn, their usual bravado replaced by an unnerving apprehension. Then came the day of reckoning. A tremor shook the very foundations of the compound. Not an earthquake, but the ground rumbling with the approach of an army. Horns blared, not Dinma's harsh calls, but the deep, resonant tones of liberation. Shouts filled the air, not of terror, but of triumph. The gates, once insurmountable, were breached with a thunderous crash. Amara, cowering with the other enslaved, watched as warriors, fierce yet disciplined, poured into the compound. And at their head, riding a magnificent warhorse, clad in the regalia of a true leader, his face etched with authority and wisdom, was a man whose eyes, though older, wiser, and filled with a profound strength, were unmistakably Kwame's. He had grown into the man he was always meant to be. His frame was broader, his shoulders squared with the weight of command, his face bearing the marks of battles fought and wisdom gained. He was no longer the humble farmer she had known, yet in his eyes she saw the same kindness, the same unwavering spirit that had once courted her. He surveyed the liberated compound, his gaze sweeping over the emaciated faces of the enslaved, a flicker of pain crossing his features. Dinma, pale and trembling, was dragged before him, a pathetic shadow of the powerful man he once was. Justice was swift and resolute, a quiet pronouncement that ended Dinma's reign of terror forever. As Kwame began to speak to the freed captives, offering words of hope and reassurance, his eyes, calm and measured, moved across the faces in the crowd, and then they landed on her, Amara. She was barely recognizable, her body gaunt, her clothes in rags, her once lustrous hair dull and sparse. The elegant Amara of Oakhaven was gone, replaced by a ghost of herself, a testament to years of suffering. Shame, hot and searing, flooded her, overwhelming the years of numb despair. She wanted to shrink into the earth, to vanish, to escape the piercing gaze of the man she had so cruelly rejected. Kwame's expression remained unreadable, a complex mixture of recognition and perhaps something akin to sorrow. He did not flinch, did not turn away. He simply looked at her, truly looked at her, without judgment, without malice, but with a profound depth that she had never understood in her youth. The crowd parted as he walked towards her, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Each step felt like a drumbeat against her own heart, each one bringing closer the crushing weight of her past. She lowered her eyes, unable to meet his gaze, feeling the full, monumental weight of her folly, her pride, her catastrophic choice. He stopped directly in front of her. The air crackled with unspoken history, with regret and resilience, with the specter of a love that had been offered and spurned. She could not bring herself to look up, her head bowed in abject shame. His voice, when he finally spoke, was not the soft pleading tone of the young farmer, nor the booming command of a warlord. It was measured, gentle, yet resonated with an undeniable authority. "Amara," he said, his voice carrying the echoes of the wind through the baobab trees, a sound she had long forgotten. He paused, allowing the name to hang in the air, a bridge across years of suffering and transformation. He reached out a hand, not to touch her, but to gesture towards the gates, now open, leading to freedom. "You are free." Those simple words, "You are free," released a floodgate within Amara. Tears, years of unshed tears, streamed down her face, not just of sorrow for her past, but of a profound, shattering gratitude. She finally looked up, her eyes, though clouded with tears, searching his. There was no anger, no triumph in his gaze, only a deep, enduring wisdom and a quiet compassion. He had every right to gloat, to remind her of her past rejections, of her pride. He had every right to scorn her, to leave her to her shame, but he did not. He simply offered her the same kindness he had offered her so many years ago, only now it came from a place of immense power and understanding. Kwame offered all the freed people, including Amara, safe passage, food, and a chance to rebuild their lives in the liberated territories. He spoke of new villages, of opportunities, of a community built on justice and equality. He did not single Amara out for special treatment, nor did he humiliate her. He treated her with the same quiet dignity he offered to everyone else, a silent testament to his character, a stark contrast to the judgment she had once hurled at him. Amara did not ask for forgiveness then, for she knew it was not hers to demand. Instead, she took the hand he offered metaphorically, the hand of freedom and a new beginning. She chose to return to Oak Haven, not as the proud beauty who had left, but as a humbled woman, a survivor, carrying the weight of her past and the lessons it had so brutally taught her. The journey back was long, arduous, a pilgrimage of repentance and self-discovery. Each step away from the compound, each step closer to her true home, was a step towards shedding the shackles of her former self, not just physical, but spiritual. When she finally reached Oak Haven, years later, a changed woman, the village was different too. It had prospered under Kwame's leadership. The huts were sturdier, the fields richer, and the laughter of the children, once bright, now carried an unmistakable ring of security and joy. No one recognized her at first, this gaunt, weary woman who bore the marks of a life too hard to fathom. But as she stood by the river, gazing at the reflections of the baobab trees, a familiar voice called her name. It was Adana, an old friend, now a respected elder, her eyes filled with a gentle pity and a quiet understanding. Amara did not beg for pity or forgiveness. She simply told her story, raw and unvarnished, a testament to the bitter fruit of pride and superficial judgment. Amara spent the rest of her days in Oak Haven, not seeking to regain her former status, but working humbly, diligently, alongside her community. She found a quiet solace in the rhythm of the earth, in the simple kindness of her fellow villagers, many of whom had once dismissed her. She never married, her heart having been irrevocably altered by her experiences, but she became a storyteller, her voice, once filled with pride, now soft and resonant, sharing her own tale not for glory, but as a cautionary lesson. Her life became a living testament to a profound truth. The value of a person is not found in the fleeting riches they possess today, but in the unwavering strength of their character, the depth of their kindness, and the quiet resilience of their spirit. Don't judge someone by what they have today, by the clothes they wear, or the size of their dwelling. For the true measure of a man or a woman is revealed not in their moments of triumph, but in their quiet integrity and in their capacity for good, qualities that, like a well-tended seed, may lie dormant for years, only to blossom into something magnificent when the time is right. Amara learned this hard truth through her suffering, realizing that the greatest wealth she had ever known was the honest love she had once rejected, and the true richness of life lay in the heart, not in the gilded cage, and that, in the end, was a truth worth more than all the gold in the world.